We are now.
All right, okay.
It doesn't matter. We can leave it out if not.
Yeah, no, because there was some great stories, some funny stories, some I couldn't repeat, and some little sad stories, which later on, with the way things were later on, you could sort of see when you're here, But honestly, some of the stories that I'd heard, especially when Chris Waddle was playing for Bradford and he went to watch him, some of the stories were brilliant. But again, I'm not sure I can repeat some of them. They were total in confidence, and I said I wouldn't say, but I'll just give you a taster, really.
Alan, it's a pleasure to have you on. Everybody, good afternoon. Bruce and myself are joined by the legendary Alan Pouton. I am refraining my blushes because Bruce is already showing photos. Alan, thank you very much. How is everything up north? Are you looking forward to coming down next week?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, everything's all good up here. It's been a bit of a whirlwind because I've been moving house, and I know I tried to get on a while ago. But finally got on, and yeah, everything's all good at the minute. And I'm looking forward to the game a week on Sunday.
I see Matt's put a little football next to your name on the I don't know what you call it, on the advertising, which suggests that you, despite what you've said, you might make a brief appearance. Is that right?
To be honest, yeah. If I'm totally honest with you, my knee's absolutely shot to bits. And I had sort of said it's going to be an appearance where I'll probably not get above a jog, if I'm honest. But to come back and obviously play in the game, and for what it means, for Broadley FC, and for Matt to ask, I will have the 10 minutes, but I don't think it will be a lot of mobility in them 10 minutes.
You could have our Diana Ross moment, couldn't you, from the World Cup in '94? You could come on and kick the ball at the pontoon goal. It'll just part whether you hit it or not.
I think I had a few of them when I played, didn't I? But they went over the ball like hers as well, didn't they?
See, now I'm just going to be biased. I don't even remember one missing. I mean, you had a very unique run up. When did that was that just taught to you naturally, or did anyone ever say so? Because you used to run from about. I mean, I might be exaggerating, but I think you started at the halfway line at times.
What was that for the penalties?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was strange. It was. A lot of people said it was a long run up. I don't know. It was to give us time to try and guess which way I was going, because I wasn't quite sure myself, But yeah, I know, compared to, especially after watching the Euros recently, some of the run-ups, I think the cameraman would have been bored by the time I got to the ball, wouldn't he?
I'd rather some of them had done your technique of just run up and smash it. None of these stupid stuttering runs, and oh God.
Well, I know times change, but I mean, like I say, I think, players nowadays, they've all got their different penalty techniques, and if it goes in, it looks great. If it doesn't, then as far as I'm concerned, if you're in a kind of position like that, I think it's a case of, just putting your foot through the ball and hoping it hits the back of the net. Not your kind of run-ups and your stops and your jigs and whatever,
Well, I actually put a little collection of your goals, your 12 goals for Town together for Alex last week, and actually you say you didn't know where your penalties were going, but the only one that they all went to the keeper's right, your left, bottom left corner usually, apart from one that you had to retake against Wimbledon, which you smashed down the middle.
You
obviously didn't dare put it in the same place again after the keeper had he saved it, and then it was retaken, I think, for encroachment, and you smashed that one down the middle as the keeper dived out the way. So
I remember that.
So you were pretty accurate. They did tend to go in the same place.
Well, I think it was a case that I don't think at the time it was where they had goalkeeping coaches watching where you went, and I think the whole penalty thing started was, I think, when we played Birmingham City, and I had been a sub, and I always remember it was the first penalty I took for Grimsby. And the simple fact was nobody wanted to take the penalty. I think Wayne Bennett took a nasty hit to the face and had to come off. And Lenny had just said, you need to go on. I think it was only after about 25 minutes. I think within the first 5 or 10 minutes, I had wiped out Andy Johnson, took a yellow card, then got a penalty. Nobody seemed to want to step forward. So I just took the ball, tucked it, I think, again to the bottom right of the keeper. It went in, and that was where the penalty started. Once after that, and that's where I just kept going, until obviously I missed. And I still remember to the day when I missed the penalty against Wimbledon, I thought I've blown the chance of a hat trick. I'll never score a hat trick again. And then when I seen the linesman flagging and I knew it was going to be retaken, I always remember Paul Groves coming up to us and says, "Are you sure you want to take the second one?" And I just sort of looked and smirked at him and I went, "Yeah, I want to take this." And he went, "That's good enough." And I knew then it was my foot was just going through the ball as long as I could keep it under the crossbar,
I think it ended up in the pontoon, but that time with the net, it was a proper smash one. I'll perhaps show you that at the end of the pod because it's not particularly good for audio for sound bites, but I'll show you that one at the end.
I think it's probably why we had to change the goals at the end of it. That thing was so tightly wound at the back. I assume they were slightly worried about recoil the way he used to blast. I'm just trying to work out. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, there would have been a more. Did you play with Jack Lester at town? Was there a brief crossover?
Yes, I think I signed. Obviously, the month's loan I had when Alan Buckley, obviously the gaffer at the time, took us on a month's loan with the view to permanent, and Jack was there then. And I think Jack was only there 6 months roundabout. I think he went round about December, January, I think, to Nottingham Forest. But I did play a little bit with Jack, yeah.
That would have been a lethal combination of Jack Lester's ability to win a penalty and Alan's ability to take him. I think would have.
But I think at the time, if I remember rightly, Jack played up front with Lee Ashcroft, and Lee Ashcroft was a penalty taker then. But yeah, no. Although I only had a short spell with Jack, he moved because he was a good player, and obviously Nottingham Forest come in and he moved to Nottingham Forest.
Did you? I got given some footage from the club last week. I get quite a lot of videos and stuff like that. And there was one of the York. I didn't realise you actually played at Blundell Park in a pre-season friendly just before you signed on loan, didn't you?
No, I didn't actually. No, I come down to watch the game, and that was because York didn't want us to play in case I got injured. Because
sorry.
Yeah. No, yeah, I didn't. I think I'm not 100% how it all come about when I first come, but I played against, obviously Alan Buckley was a manager, against Grimsby for York in the final season of my contract kind of thing. And I remember playing down at Grimsby for York, and I think I took a bit of stick because I tackled somebody near the dugouts, and it sort of all had a bit of a sort of ding-dong, and I took a bit of stick for the rest of the game. But then I remember playing Boxing Day against Grimsby for York, and it was a 0-0 draw, but it was a really good game, really enjoyable football game. And then I think come the end of the season, that's when I kind of think Alan Buckley must have kept an eye and sort of coming in. But I didn't play in the pre-season game. I come down to watch it.
Was the move already in the offing then?
No, I think what had happened, I was at York and I was out of contract, but I was on the kind of Bosman, and they wanted a fee. And they had offers a contract that I wasn't happy with the contract, and sort of left it at that. They said you've got so long to agree, otherwise that's it. And it just, for whatever reason, it wasn't right for me. I didn't think they were fair with us at the time. And all of a sudden, I'd heard the manager pull us and says, "Oh, look, there's a championship club interested in you." And he said, obviously, it was Grimsby. And then, funny enough, we were playing that Saturday, but he says, "You're not going to play in the game." And I says, "Well, why?" He says, "Because I don't want the risk of you getting injured." So I kind of took it as they were trying to get the deal through. And then from then, it was a month's loan with a view to a permanent deal, which obviously happened, after the month.
Were you surprised with the move, and was there a definite change and step up when you came to town from York?
I mean, it's strange because I was 20, 21, 22, and I was at York, and I knew that York obviously wanted a fee. It was a Bosman, so they were going to obviously continue with a contract. But I was surprised when they said a championship club was interested, which was great, because at that same time, York had just been relegated to which would have been League Two now, and we were in. I keep forgetting all but it would have been League Two. They would have been in League Two at the time, So I kind of jumped from League Two back to the Championship, which I hadn't played in before. And I wouldn't say, I mean, obviously the players were a lot better players, but I kind of come into training, enjoyed it, sort of fitted in. Although looking back now, sort of went into the team and then come kind of looking back, the way Alan Buckley was, he was staying loyal to his players that had done well the season before, which I understand. Now, I didn't at the time. He had brought us in and then just kind of was on the bench all the time. But, you know, that was the way Alan was. He was loyal. And then I didn't get my chance till after Christmas, I think it was, by an injury. You know, I think somebody got injured and went down to bare bones, and I got a chance, I think, from then, and then stayed in the team for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think. Sorry,
Alex. No, that first season, I was just having a look earlier. Actually, that first season, you started 19 games and 17 as sub. So, like you say, it was. But looking at what you say, it's spot on. It took you a little while to get to cement a place in the team, but once you were there, like you say, he stuck with you, and you were obviously doing the job for him.
Yeah, I think the not so much a problem. I think when I was younger, I always wanted to play centre midfield, and I thought that was my best position. But because I could play across the whole of the midfield, even when I was at York, they played us on the wing, right wing, left wing at York, to, I suppose, they wanted to accommodate different players who couldn't play in that position. So I kind of, by playing on the wing, sort of drifted from my natural position in the centre midfield while I was younger, you know, then come in. And to be honest, Alan Buckley played as right wing, he played as left wing when I first come in. And then I think there was an injury. I can't remember, it might have been, I can't remember who the injury was to, but he put us back in the centre midfield from round about back end of January, early February, and then continued to play in that position of my first season at Grimsby, you know, which I obviously enjoyed. But again, I think later on, Lenny come in, who I got on, at first didn't really get on with Lenny, but then got on with Lenny. And he kind of played us on the right wing, which I still preferred the centre midfield, you know.
What made you rub against Lenny a little bit at the beginning? Then was
I don't think it was anything rubbing against him. I think managers come in and have their own opinion, and have, like any manager, they have their sort of say what they want to do with the team. And it's happened before, and I just think possibly at the time, Lenny come in and I picked up an knee injury and ended up going in for an operation on my knee. It was kind of clean out. I'm not too sure that they thought there was something wrong, but there was with my knee. I knew there was. And I didn't really get a look in with Lenny for a long time. And I think he put us on the bench at Christmas when we were short of numbers. And again, it was when we were struggling. And then again, I come back in the team, I think round about, that was the time I got back in the team was the Birmingham game when Wayne got injured and Lenny put us on after whatever. And then from then on, didn't look back again. And to be fair to Lenny, come the end of the season when we did stay up, he was the one that offered us the new contract, you know, which I thought, I don't want to sound like, you know, but I'm the type of person, if I'm not playing, I'm not going to go in the huff. I'm going to try and prove that I want to be back in that team. And I think probably Lenny respected that from his point of view. He probably hold his hands up. He thought he made a mistake. And by his accounts, then to offer us a new contract, he must have thought something of us, you know. Because I honestly thought at that time, and at one point I was on my way out at the end of the season, and there had been whispers that I was going to be out by the end of the season. They were trying to get rid of us, but things change, and a freak injury to somebody changes your path, you know.
And maybe, like you say, that's probably where your attitude and you're not causing him a problem came back to bore fruit, if you like, and you got your chance again and took it, and it sort of changed history, if you like.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, go on about, like, you know, you get different players and everybody's different. The way I see it is, I always try to keep myself. I trained how I played, for the simple fact, for my own pride, to keep myself fit. Because if somebody didn't want us, then that's fair enough. But I want to be able to be fit enough and ready enough to go to another team, if needed be, and prove that I'm ready to go. You know, I didn't want to be unfit. I didn't want to be not ready to be put into the team. So I always wanted to like sort of, you know, pride myself on the way I played, and that's what it was. You know, I think Lenny seen in training, I didn't just like sort of, as you like, toss it off. I still knuckled down. I was in the reserves. I played in the reserves how I would play in the first team. No difference. I trained how I played. And that's not how you look at me. That's just the way I was, and that's the way I am. And as far as I'm concerned, that was my game. I would give everything in a game. I would give everything in training, and that's how I play. That's how I was. You know. I try and prove. Sorry.
No, it's all right. I'm sorry. Apologies for interrupting.
No, I was just going to say that's just how I try to prove people wrong. It didn't always work, but you know, with certain people, it would work.
What was it like growing up in Newcastle? I guess as a youth player, and what was that like? And did many players from the teams you were in move up that we would know of?
It was a fantastic experience. I was an apprentice. It's different now. You've got the academies now, and you've got, obviously, I don't know what age they start at now, but the academy I would have classed as was the School of Excellence, it was called. You know, at the time there was an under 11, under 12, under 13 or a 14 age group, and you had the best 30, 40 lads training once a week, twice a week at a School of Excellence, you know. And obviously being at Newcastle, I think everybody knows I'm a massive fan, still am. Being at my hometown club, absolutely loved it, and gradually got a schoolboy forms at the time. I don't know if anybody remembers them, and then a YTS, you know, the apprenticeship scheme. But obviously being an apprentice at Newcastle, it was under the Kevin Keegan time, and probably looking at what you were on the crest of a wave, but looking back, you were never going to get a chance. And I think I realised that towards my second year of YTS. I kind of thought, there's no way I'm ever going to break into this team, you know. On the fringes of the reserves, played reserve games, you know, with some of the professionals, internationals sometimes that couldn't get a game or were coming back from injury. But a million miles away from the first team, as was probably the whole apprentices, apart from one or two who trained with them. There was a lad, Paul Brayson, who I think he went on to Cardiff and Reading. He sort of got in with the first team, but he never really, he played a couple of games, but never really got a decent crack at the whip, you know. He was scoring goals for fun in the junior team and reserves. He made it. I think there was another lad who was my age group. He captained the reserves for a lot of years and sort of went on loan to different clubs, the lad Stuart Elliott. And there was also a goalkeeper, Peter Keane, who sort of floated around at the club till they were 23, 24, maybe he's moved on, but never really got a chance at Newcastle. So they kind of stayed till they were a bit older, but never really got the chance as well, you know.
Did you?
Is that the Stuart? Sorry, Alex. Is that the Stuart Elliott we had for a bit?
No, I know that there was a Stuart Elliott that was at Hull, wasn't there?
Ah, that's the one. Yeah. There's a Northern Irish Stuart Elliott.
Yeah, no. Stuart Elliott was he was a London lad, but he was at Newcastle quite a few years. The manager's there, and he was obviously captain of the reserves, but never really got into the first team, you know. And then I think he sort of went on loan to a few different clubs, and then I think, to be honest, I think he's around about my age. He only packed in a couple of years ago, so he was playing non-league up until 40-year-old, you know, 40, 41, I think.
Sounds like my Monday night football, Alex. That's were the sort of playing? We chatted to Livo, and we've spoken to Livo and Macca in the last few months, and obviously they grew up together or in the very close together. Were there like growing up? You played sort of the usual sort of school football for the school, Sunday league or schoolboy football or whatever. Was there anybody sort of that you grew up with, sort of not at Newcastle, that went on to have a career elsewhere?
Well, there was. I would say there was a lad. There was quite a few lads who went to different clubs because it was kind of it wasn't an academy, and you could go on trials to different clubs, schoolboy trials, and everybody was going, to Everton, Wimbledon's at the time, Leeds, all the teams they were going to, and some lads got snapped up, and again they went on the YDS scheme. My age didn't make it. There was a lad, Sam Easton, who made it, and he was at Newcastle, but then went to Sunderland, and he actually played under Peter Reid in the Sunderland first team. I think he was only about 17. He had lightning pace, but he was big and tall. And then he eventually, I think he went to Shrewsbury, was at Shrewsbury a lot of years. So he made it in the game as well, with Sunderland, and then obviously on to Shrewsbury Town. He was there quite a few years, He was the same age as me, played the same city boys team, as in your school's football, your local school football, in your county, obviously Lincolnshire County, it was Northumberland County up here. He played in the same team with me then,
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Right.
The stories that Livo and Macca told us were brilliant. I think they were at schools next to each other or something.
They're at the same school. They played in the same team, which is slightly terrifying that both of them were in it. I feel sorry for anyone who came up against them.
Yeah.
Right, I've got to ask this because this is the question that got asked 4 times, both through our DMs and then on this Slido thing. And the Buckley's Purple Bell. That's not your name. Did you secretly feel proud when you scored that own goal against Reading, knowing that it was likely to be the longest range own goal ever?
No, I think if you see the goal go in, I was turning around and end up having a scuffle with somebody else. But I just want to put this straight, because as far as I'm concerned, it actually wasn't an own goal, and I can vouch for this, because when I moved to Gillingham, the lad I was tackling at the time was a lad called Darius Henderson. And I sat with Darius on the coach when I first went there. And I says, do you remember that own goal? Or sort of not own goal? And he went, yeah, I totally remember it. He says, it wasn't an own goal. He says, you actually hit the ball off my shin, but you can't really tell by the camera. He says, so I'm claiming the goal. So I turned around and says, well, that's fair enough. You can have the goal. So, so as far as I'm concerned, it was a Darius Henderson goal, not an own goal. So they'll have to take them out of all the bloopers I've supposedly heard of friends that have said they've seen it,
Oh, don't worry. After the last 15 years, it doesn't make the top 50. No.
I tell you, it's funny because I don't know if you've seen it, and I don't know the lad myself. I played against him a couple of times, but I've got a friend who's a Darlington fan, and he went to watch a Darlington game, and I think you'll remember it. They were playing Bury, and he said he was at the Darlington Arena, and there was only 3,000 or 4,000 in this massive arena. And it was when Chris Brass, the lad for Bury, kicked the ball and it went and he broke his nose. Well, obviously, that took a bit of pressure off my own goal. But one of the lads who I know and I work with, he's, like I say, a big Darlington fan, he said he was there. And he looked at my own goal and he looked at his own goal. And to be fair to him, he said Chris Brass's was better, so I'll take that.
I mean, it just like the idea you did everything spectacularly. That was all.
Yeah.
What are you going to say,
Bruce? A little bit of a mistimed tackle.
I was just going to say, do you after sort of two that like you say, your first season you were with us, you were in and out the team. The second season was massively affected by your injury. I think you only played just over 20 games. Do you think the season under Grovesy, where we 2001-2, where we stayed up with the Burnley game and all that sort of stuff, do you think that was your best season at Town? You played 35 games, you scored 5 goals. Do you think that was that your best season? And do you think that was that anything to do with Grovesy being in charge, or do you think that you just settled into Championship life by then and you were perhaps fitter than you had been?
I mean, I wouldn't say it was fitter because,
I mean, injury-wise, sorry.
Oh, injury-wise.
I'm not having that, Bruce, yet.
Yeah, all them pies.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, probably looking at that, yeah, it was probably my best season if you go off like what you're reading out with the statistics and everything. Yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic end of the season because I think a lot of people had Rover off, gone Christmas, January, February, and what I would say is I know Paul Groves took a lot of stick in his time as manager, especially towards the end. But for me, I've got a lot of respect for Groves, not only as a player but as a manager, because I really enjoyed playing for him. I knew where he was coming from. He was a thinker. His tactics, you know, he'll admit he's made mistakes, you know, like everybody would if they're honest. But you know, he was Mr. Football. A lot of things I know. When he was manager, you know, people don't know about. He would go up and walk at the training ground at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, just so it would be like sort of soft for the next day to train when it was summer. You know, he went to a lot of games all over the country to watch players. But obviously, from that note for that season, I really enjoyed playing under Grovesy, and I've got a lot to thank for him, because he gives us a captaincy when a lot of people thought I was a loose cannon, which kind of had to calm us down a little bit. You know, I did get carried away when I was past off the white line was a different story. But when I did play, I could see red mist quite easily because of the will to win, if you like. And I think Grovesy sort of seen that. And, you know, obviously when John McDermott was ever injured, I would take the captain's armband, and kind of it calmed us down because I had responsibilities, you know. I didn't just have to look after myself. I had to sort of... And certain players you don't have to look after, you know, you like your Steve Livingston's, he knows what he's doing, you know, your older players, but sometimes now and then the younger players need a little bit of guidance, and you can't go shouting and ranting and raving because people can go into their shell. So you've got to have a happy medium, and I kind of had to look at that myself and take on responsibilities. So from that point of view with Groves, I've got a lot of time for him as a player, manager, and as a person as well. But also with him coming in as manager, you know, I think a lot of people forget he kind of got John Oster and Andy Todd's careers back on track, because they were sitting in the reserves at Charlton and at Sunderland, and he brought them in. And I think anybody that's seen that season towards the end of the season, you know, they were absolutely John, when he come in, is absolutely fantastic, you know, fantastic players. And Grovesy got the best out of them. And I think from there, they both got good moves to new clubs and kick-started their careers again. But obviously going back to the time with Grimsby with him, I kind of, you know, Grovesy took over and he kind of got the lads together, and there was a really good spirit, and we all enjoyed it. And we enjoyed going into training, we enjoyed playing matches, and especially when the run started, you know, you just felt that. I think I can't remember, but we played at Wolves and we went and beat Wolves 1-0. That kind of started our run. You know, Wolves were top of the league and running away with it. And I remember going to Wolves and we got the result. Again, I think it was Andy Todd who scored the goal. And it kind of like sort of had a roll-on effect from there. You know, we just kind of, we dropped a couple of games and a couple of points here and there. But the run we put together was fantastic. And it was a genuine team spirit. And Paul had got people in that weren't playing at other clubs, and he managed to get all the gel, you know, as well. And everybody got on, and everybody was looking forward to training and looking forward to playing games, you know.
Do you think that was the pinnacle of your career in terms of your level of performances?
Yeah, possibly. You know, it's hard because I think everybody knows I've had a lot of injuries over my career, and it's just one of them things. It's whether the way I played, I wouldn't change it. But yeah, at the time, I was in the team. I was playing. I was enjoying my football. I was looking forward to games. You know, I enjoyed the crack between the lads in the changing room. You know, we had a great set of lads. All each different things. You know, just it was a good atmosphere, and it was a really good time. You know, yeah, and possibly because playing in the Championship, turning over, you know, Wolves top of the league. I think, you know, just obviously the Wimbledon game, you know, a few weeks later, it was just a really good time, in which I think people, I suppose, as a Grimsby fan now, a lot of people would give their right arm to have them times back.
No comment. Who was the last person? Who was the last person you told that you scored against Man City?
It was the last person I told.
Yeah, I assume it comes up in conversation every now and then, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. I don't. To be honest, I don't. I'm back up in Newcastle, and I've got a couple of close friends who knew I played, but I don't. If I meet people or what have you, I don't never tell them what I did or what if I played football. Never tell people. So I don't know. The last person I couldn't honestly tell you. No, couldn't honestly tell you.
It's funny. We had Mick Baldwin on the other week, as I mentioned earlier, and
Yeah.
Mick said when he watches goals that he scored now, we showed him a couple of goals while we were doing the pod, and he said it looks like to him it's a different person. It's not the same person. You know, that his football sort of career has been and gone, and like you say, he likes to look back on it, but when he watches it, it's like he's watching somebody else.
Yeah. It's. I mean, from my point of view, it's. I don't want to sound like as if I come across, but I was very privileged to do something I loved doing as a kid, and even more, like, you know, privileged to play professional football. I was lucky enough and got paid to do something that most kids dream of, you know. And when it's strange when I see, it's almost that I get embarrassed if I see clips about myself from the past, you know. It's like, oh, yeah, because I was never one of these that would go, oh yeah, look at me, I'm this and that, blah, 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 on the telly. I kind of took a step back from it, and kind of, if people spoke to us, I would speak about football all day long, but I would kind of try and stay away from it all, you know. It wasn't me. I don't know. Some people loved being a footballer, loved this, loved that. I was privileged to be a footballer, but a lot of my friends were from the working class backgrounds, which kind of, they didn't really say, oh, you played Saturday, yeah, blah, blah, all right, well, we're going tonight, you know, for a drink, what have you. And that was the way that kind of probably my feet were on the ground, you know. I'd imagine if I ever got out of hand, I would have been put straight back down to earth, you know.
Speaking of sort of just going out with your mates and like Joe Turner, who I assume has not gotten over this by the sounds of it, says, do you remember playing pool in the Fleece in Louth with Ian Anderson? We played doubles and you nudged my cue as I was on the black, you dirty bugger. I'm sure he's over it.
There's some cracking questions on here.
I remember I was good friends with Ian Anderson because he lived not far from Louth, and I remember we used to go out to Louth for a few drinks, and he loved his pool. So yeah, we would have definitely been playing pool. I can imagine we would take people on, you know, would have a challenge doubles because I was no good and he was unbelievable, Ian, at pool. So from that, yeah, I probably did play the lad, and probably did nudge him if he was on the black or whatever to win the game, you know.
You're lucky you didn't take him out with 2 feet, innit?
You can't do step overs on a pool table.
Yeah, no. Yeah, well, so to be honest, I did used to have a few drinks and a few games of pool in Louth, and I'd possibly, yeah, if the lad's saying that, yes, then more than likely I did do that as well.
It's still a good night out in Louth. It's still a good night.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. Did you have a favourite boozer down there? Because that's where I prefer to drink in our area.
In Louth, no. If I'm honest with you, I mean, Louth was a lovely place and I enjoyed going out, you know, for a few drinks here and there. But if I'm honest, believe it or not, I used to go on a Sunday to the Honest Liar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I used to drink with my friends in the Honest Liar, a few of the lads. Especially, I think it might have been Bruce who might have got my number off one of my friends had got in touch.
Yeah, it was Kenny. It was a mate of Kenny Young's.
Yeah. My friend Andy Bowles, he's obviously a massive Grimsby fan, goes to the games, got the season ticket. And I met him. But we used to go in there with a few other lads because he played for a Sunday pub team who I used to go and watch. And I used to drink, obviously, when I didn't have a game midweek, I used to drink in the Honest Liar on a Sunday in there, you know. And used to get on well with basically everybody in there. They were all a good bunch of people as well.
I assumed you wouldn't have had to have bought a drink.
Oh no, yeah, I did. No, that was I think
you'd have fit. I can understand why you fitted in. You know, you sort of you're very northern like we are, aren't you? It's you know, it's and like you say, the attitude and people that step out of line, the mates would rein them in a little bit, you know. So yeah. I can see. Yeah,
there was actually, if you got time, there was an incident in there. I was in there one. I always remember it because I was in there having a drink, as I did, and you know I would have a crack with it. A lot of the lads would play pool, watch the football on a Sunday, and used to talk to a few of the lads who were regulars in there. And there was one Sunday, I think a couple of lads had come in, 2 or 3 lads, had recognised us, had a few beers, and I was just standing at the bar talking to a couple of the lads, a couple of friends, and I think that I don't know how it happened, but I think they had got a bit quite leery and had a pop. But I think, and they were told, and the whole pub kind of stopped, the music stopped and everything. And I think they were told in no certain circumstances not even to finish their drinks, just leave the pub then, you know. So it was funny because I don't think they realised I knew a few people, like a few friends in there, and they were good people, and they said, look, he comes in here for a drink, just leave him be. And that was the polite way, you know.
What was the you told us a story we were lucky enough to hear before we started, because obviously was it Quick Mick that wanted Gazza's shirt, Bruce?
Yeah, he was most not I won't say he was most upset, but he was he did remember clearly.
He hated it. He's going to
at the end of the Burnley game, as he was walking off, he approached Gazza for his shirt, and he said, "I'm sorry, it's already sorted. Pouts is having it."
Yeah. Like I say, Phil Jevons, who obviously was at Grimsby with us, he was at Everton with Gazza, and I remember. I can't remember the game, but we'll come back from the away game on the coach, and we had Burnley, I think, in a couple of weeks. And can't remember if the players were talking about different things. And like I said before, didn't really collect football shirts. That was just me, you know. Some players did. And I was sitting on the coach, and I says to Jevo, "Oh, you know what? I don't collect shirts basically, but I would love Gazza's shirt. Obviously, I used to go and watch him when I was a kid in Newcastle on the terraces, and I would absolutely love his shirt." And just then, Jevo turned around and says, "Well, actually, I've got his number. Do you want us to give him a ring?" And I was like, "Well, go on and see what he says." And he rang him, but it was Jimmy Five Bellies answered the phone. And obviously, they were speaking. And he says, "Look, I've got a lad here, big Newcastle fan, loved Gazza. Is any chance of his shirt, Jimmy?" And Jimmy went, "Leave it with us, it'll be sorted." And true to Jimmy's word, we played Burnley. Spoke to Gazza during the game. And he was like, "Oh, you're the one that wants me shirt." I was like, "Yeah, if you don't mind, blah, blah, blah." Come in after the game, I was getting showered, come out the showers. Gazza walked in the changing room. He says, passed us the shirt that he had played in. He says, "There you go." He says, "But next time," he says, "keep your legs shut," because obviously during the game he had nutmegged us, you know. But at the same time, I didn't want to turn around and say, "Yeah, I'll take the nutmegs over the 3-1, no Gazza," because I thought that would be pushing me luck, you know. He might take the shirt back, but yeah, no, he did. He was spot on, and true to his word, he come in. Because I think a few of the lads had tried to get the shirt, and he actually kept it with him and come in our changing room after the game and had a little bit chat, which was brilliant, you know.
I feel sorry for Burnley, don't you? They must have had to go through so many Gazza shirts every place they played.
Well, actually, like I say, I didn't collect shirts, but the shirt I wore in the game against them actually got framed. In a local shop in town. I asked the lad, I went in and he says, "Yeah, I'll frame it." And he had sort of said, he had put it in the shop. He says, "Do you mind if I keep it a couple of weeks and put it in the shop window just to sort of promote it?" That was obviously, I put my shirt in just because I wanted my shirt next to Gazza's. And he says, when I went to pick it up, he says, "I could have sold that shirt 4 or 5 times. Well, sold the frame of both shirts 4 or 5 times." He says, because a few people had walked in off the street and said, "What's the price you're looking for them?" I don't believe it was my shirt. I think it was probably Gazza's shirt. They would have took mine out and kept his, you know. But it was a nice thing. It was a nice thing for the lad to say, you know.
Is it hung up, or is it in the attic at the new house?
Believe it or not, it was hung up in a room when I was living down in Kent. It was hung up, and when I moved, I actually broke the glass and it smashed. So I've got both the shirts still, but I probably have to get them reframed. But I don't think I'll get mine reframed. I think I'll just get his done.
I'll have that one.
Can you? I've just got a couple of questions before we come on to the majority of the questions that the listeners have sent in. You talked about in your second season you had your knee flushed out, and obviously your knee injuries. Was it? Did you really just suffer from the same repeated injury that never really sorted itself out, or did you have different injuries over the time? You say your career was obviously quite heavily affected by injury.
Yeah, what it was all to do with my cartilage, and it was the same injury every time. If I'm honest, I had probably had 3 operations before I was 17 on my knees. I think I was young, and I did it around about 13 or 14. And because I was so young, they didn't really want to take my cartilage out at the time. And then they tried to save it, and it didn't really work. And then I think it was about a year or two later, it wasn't right. So they shaved a little bit. Still wasn't right, so they took a bit more out. So by the time I was 17, I think I missed my apprenticeship at Newcastle. I think I missed the first 3, 4, 5 months of the season because I'd had the operation then. And then just kind of from there, it just gave us trouble. It gave us trouble for a lot of years. Throughout my career, every so often it would flare up. And I think, again, I don't, for people that aren't sure with the cartilage, it's like a kind of rubber bone that protects your bones together. And then gradually I end up having to get it took out. I think all of it took out, and it's a case of there's no going back, it's just bone on bone, and it gradually just wears down, and you kind of compensate. But I think overall, if I'm honest, I've had about 8 operations on it now, 9 operations, and that obviously forced us to retire, which is, it's disappointing. But I look back and I had, a great 11 or 12 year. But I spoke to my dad, and what people don't realize, my dad played non-league football in Newcastle, but he was everything I didn't have. He had pace, he was a goal scorer, and he played centre forward. And I was the total opposite. But my dad had problems with his knees. I don't know whether it had anything to do with that. But my dad used to, when he was a child, he had to wear, I don't know if you remember calipers, the metal calipers, to keep his legs straight. And he always used, yeah. It was because his knees would go. Yeah, it was because his knees would go in. One of his knees would anyway. So he always said, was it due to me? I don't think it was, but, you look back and you think, was it not? But mine was cartilage. I don't know how that affected us. But it was the same repeated injury with my knee. It was to do with the cartilage. Tried all sorts, drilling through the kneecap to regrow the cartilage. Everything we tried, different operations. It just wasn't to be, You
didn't get many summer holidays then. You were usually having an operation and rehabilitation.
Well, it happened through the season. I got me summer holidays, but it was like recuperating and all that. But so.
The only other thing that I've written down before we started was there's a couple of the questions that people asking, any regrets about moving to Gillingham and that sort of thing, and do you wish you'd stayed longer? But am I right in remembering all the stories that you didn't really want to leave, or is that not right?
I mean, it's a difficult thing because I'll clarify. The pre-season of the season, obviously, I left. We were away on tour, and Paul Groves was the manager, and he pulled us to one side and he says, "We want to talk about offering you a new deal." He says, "Well, you've got a year left. We want you to offer you a new contract." And I says, "That's fine by me." He says, "But let's get pre-season out of the way and we'll have a chat." And as it was, I got injured pre-season about a couple of weeks before the season started again, my same knee. And I think, as you know, I missed 6 months of the season. It wasn't until Christmas I come back, and obviously things had changed financially. And the club, obviously, I don't know the situation financially, but I know that asked all of us to defer payments that were what owed, which the players did. Kind of, I think it was bonuses and related appearance money that you got. So the lads had agreed with the club to defer them. I'm sure it was that. So I knew the club, obviously, financially, it had problems. It was a strange time because I'd come back. I'd been out a long time and played a couple of games, and then I got into the January, and it wasn't a case that I didn't want to leave. I kind of thought, obviously, the contract wasn't going to happen. They weren't going to offer us it while I wasn't fit. I totally understand. I came back, never heard nothing more about the contract. But from my point of view, I had 6 months left. The club had said they had spoke to Gillingham, and I was free and able to talk to Gillingham. Now, from that point of view, as far as I was concerned, it was a case of the club were looking to offload us. I kind of, from that point as a player, only personally myself, I thought it's not the club didn't want us. In a way, they didn't want us, but in a way, they weren't standing in my way. So I didn't want to be the club. I didn't want to be somewhere, not with the supporters, anything like that, but I didn't want to be somewhere that I kind of wasn't wanted, if you like. If by kind of the board, if at the time, they were kind of wanting, obviously, maybe to free up finances, so they weren't going to stand in my way, but I wasn't going to say no and then kind of be a problem, because you don't know what it's so hard, but you don't know. It could have caused a bit of uproar, but as far as I was concerned, I had to get security for my family and for myself. Gillingham were offering us a contract that also, come that 6 months later, had I stayed, I would have been like a lot of other footballers at the time, out of contract, not guaranteed. I know it sounds crazy, but not guaranteed a club. I think a lot of people got caught up thinking, I'll just demand this, I'll demand that for my wages because I'm on a free. When in hindsight, a lot of footballers struggled to get clubs and had to actually drop the wage demands just to get playing a game. The only thing I would say about the situation with that is, you know, people say you left this and that. I left because, for one, the club never ever put a contract. They didn't even come to us and say, well, do you want to stay? This is what the contract would be if you wanted to stay. And I just kind of got the impression that the people above who run the club were quite happy for us to go. So I didn't want to stay where I wasn't welcome, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, I think Paul. I wasn't involved last week, but you had Paul Groves at the time was. You know, he was talking, wasn't he, Alex, about just how unbelievably tight the finances were and the directives that he was being given from the board. So that rings quite true. And you weren't the only one, were you, that the club moved on at that time? No. To free up finances after the ITV digital thing. You know, it was a couple of years after that, but the finances were in that state for several years. And plus, we were sliding down the leagues as well, so they would have been losing revenue in other areas too.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think only people that run the club know the finances. So, you know, it's kind of, if I don't know what kind of trouble the finances were at the time, what they were trying to achieve. If we had stayed up, and other players had stayed and we stayed up, would it have been okay, or would have just prolonged it? You just don't know. It's kind of questions you can't answer. All I know is I had just, believe it or not, I had just bought a house down in Tetney, which I'd only been in about 3 or 4 months, and then I was having to move on, you know. So I was kind of, you know, from that point of view, I was, obviously, if I had knew that I wasn't going to be there, I wouldn't have bought the house, but I had bought the house thinking that, you know, seeing what was happening, and, you know, I only had the house 4 or 5 months, and then I was obviously on the move, you know, kind of thing. So
that sounds about right. Funny enough, my wife was telling me earlier that she actually babysat for you a couple of times. You used to live in New Waltham.
Yeah, what, you babysat me?
Yeah, no, well, not you personally, but
I
don't know how many children there were, but yeah. I mean, yeah, she said she had to come to the Honest Lawyer on a Sunday afternoon at about 7 o'clock. She said she used to babysit for you a couple of times. Oh, she did a couple of times anyway.
Yeah, it would have been me too. Obviously, was my partner, me two stepdaughters. They would have been young at the time. And sometimes, obviously, I would go to the pub with the lads, but sometimes we'd go out as couples as well, you know. So yeah.
And one of my other friends, Jason Paget, says that he cried when he saw on teletext that you were leaving the club, and he was 23 at the time. So I don't know if Alex wants to comment on that, what his reaction was at the time, but he was obviously a bit younger.
I still haven't got over it, if I'm being entirely honest, Bruce.
Well, to be honest with you, the deal come out the kind of blue, and if, believe it or not, I kept going back and forth because I'd been told Gillingham were interested, but as far as I was concerned, I remember we were playing Port Vale and on the Saturday, and I trained on the Friday, and I remember Grovesy saying, "Oh, as far as I'm concerned, you're playing on Saturday against Port Vale. Just keep your head right, or you're in the team." And I was like, "Yeah, no bother." And then all of a sudden, things just changed, and the clubs are trying to agree stuff, and I was trying to agree a lot of things, and I was actually sat outside. I forget the name. Next to Barclays Bank, it used to be the old pub near Barclays Bank.
It's a scratching post now. I can't remember.
Yeah. I was sat down there on the phone. Obviously, at the time, I had an agent trying to agree and negotiate different things. So I knew it was past the stage now, and I knew there was no going back. Grimsby weren't stopping the deal going through. They were almost trying to push it, I think, anyway. And I drove off to come back to the ground to sort it. Then somebody said it had fell through, so I got down the bottom of Isaac's Hill, turned back round, went back up the hill again, parked back up, and it was kind of strange. I kept driving around until it was all sorted, but obviously, if I'm honest, obviously I didn't want to go because my family, my two stepdaughters were from there, and my partner was settled, but at the same time I had to have security as well, you know. And it's awful, but it's football, and sometimes you know, people have to sort of look after their family. That your kind of families come first, you know. And that's what it was at the end of the day. It was a shame. It was such a shame to leave. But as far as like I've said before, as far as I was concerned, it was kind of out my hands, if you like. I didn't have a decision whether they wanted us to keep us or it was kind of, you know, there was no offer on the table, and I had to look after me and my family's best interests, you know.
Bruce, can we please change the subject?
All right. Shall we go on to some questions?
Yeah,
sorry, Bruce. So you'll not want to hear how close I come to coming back then, Alex.
Oh, no.
That is one of the questions, actually, somewhere.
Is it?
Alex, you ask some questions. I'm going to go get another beer.
Oh, how close did you come to coming back then, and when was that?
No, if I'm honest,
you're at Cheapside.
No. I did speak, and I spoke. I spoke at the time. I spoke. I don't mind. I spoke to John Fenty, rang us at home when I was at home in my home in Kent, and he had said, you know, we want you to come back. I would love you to come back. Would you be interested? And at the time, I think again, Gillingham had sort of were quite happy for us to leave. You know, it wasn't working out down there. They had kind of said, you know, your contract finishes at the end of the season, you won't be getting offered a new deal. And this was pre-season, just after. So I spoke. But one or two things come up, and from what I gathered, it was never going to materialise. I was willing to take a good pay cut, but at the same time, the money that was being offered was a lot less than what I was on, but it was being offered over a kind of 2-year deal, which I was at Gillingham, and it just didn't tally up, because the same money would have took us 2 years what I was getting for 1 year, kind of thing, if you know what I mean. I tried to discuss this, obviously, and you know, John was a businessman, and I couldn't understand where he was coming from at the time. You know, he was offering us a 2-year deal, but on less than half of what I was on, which still would have been less than over a year's money, kind of thing. And I just said, I can't do it. You know, I says, I can't do that. It doesn't make sense to do that. And that was, you know, it was kind. I think he was kind. He had sort of said, "Come on, you know, you want to come back." And I says, "Yeah, I do want to come back, but it's got to be on the right terms." And it was kind of a standoff, and it didn't happen. It just didn't happen from there. I don't think at the time Grimsby were willing to budge, and obviously I wasn't as well from that point of view, you know.
I didn't think I could find more ways to hate John Fenty than I do now, Bruce, but I found another one.
You know, when I was there, John was running the club. I don't know the ins and outs, but you know, I got on with John when I seen him. You know, he was okay with me. I was okay with him. If I seen him in the street now, I would speak to him. I've got no grudges about, you know, leaving with what happened. But you know, everybody's different. Everyone's got their own opinion.
I would certainly speak to him in the street as well, but I don't think he'd want me to talk to him. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, we've got to talk about what have we got down here. I have a step over fetish. Asked in an alternative universe where ITV didn't go tits up, how far could that Grimsby team have talked with the one we were talking about with the Burnley win and alike really get to? Did you think there was sky the limit on that one?
I mean, it's difficult because, I think other clubs at the time with ITV Digital spent, and they struggled as well. They got money that they spent money that they never had, or thought they were going to get, but they didn't. So it's hard to call on that one. I know we had a good group of players, and at the time when I was playing with the same players, a lot of big clubs had big hitters and big names and internationals, but what I found and which I enjoyed is, we had a great team spirit, a group of lads. And what I've got to remember, like what you've got to remember when I signed under Alan Pouton, nearly every player lived in Grimsby. And Grovesy had it to a point, but then there become a point with the situation and with the money. Lads start to travel, and then you sort of start the car share, and you've got to do that to allow players to come. The only thing I would say is, with that, sometimes they call it the car share. You start forming cliques, in the changing room, and you have certain players who knock about with each other. And then if there's a few lads not playing and they're in one car, it can become a bit like sort of not nasty, but a bit bitter and a bit. And you could organise a night out, but you would never get everybody there. And I think, looking back on when I first signed under Alan Pouton, we'd have a night out and everybody was virtually there, the whole team. And that kind of kept everybody together, close knit, and you kind of got to know players as well. So it's totally different now with your diets and all the sports scientists. But I do believe, when I was at Grimsby, a lot of it was down to team spirit, that you knew players in your team had your back and you had their back, and it was just a good camaraderie, sort of going out and having a good night out, but also having a good laugh, and not anybody being sort of up their own backside or too big for the club. It wasn't never like that.
When we, I know as a fan, I used to love seeing you lads out on a Saturday night. And like you say, there'd be 10 or 12 or more players sometimes. And we'd be, you'd be in O'Neill's and the players would be out, and you'd seen them win on a Saturday or even lose or draw, and the players would be out. And then, like you say, you go out now and it is slightly different, but it's not the same. And maybe forget the ITV digital. Maybe it's the fact that our players don't, they don't all live so locally. We've always had some travel in, but yeah. like you say, in those days, the majority live locally. But I think they were probably operating on longer contracts then, and that since we've dropped down the league, we've probably given out 8 or 10 new contracts this summer, and there's probably been 3 2-year deals and 7 1-year deals. Well, you can't. I don't expect anybody to move the family on a 1-year deal. It's not. No. It's not viable, is it?
No, that's the way football is. Unfortunately, again, like you say, I mean, I think, again, going back to when I signed for Gillingham, they offered me a 2.5-year deal. And I said, I'm not coming down to Kent, uprooting my family for 2.5 years. I says, and I ended up signing a 3.5-year deal. Again, probably apart from when you're a top player now, it's unheard of. And that's unfortunate because, for clubs, and, for Grimsby, it's obviously you're on the M180 and it's attracting players for such a journey, so they have to travel, if you know what I mean, because yes, you've got Grimsby who are on the coast, and when Alan was there, he had everybody living there. That was the thing, like you see under the contracts now. You may have people travelling from Sheffield or from further afield, Manchester, and they can't afford to sell the house for a year's deal. To move to Grimsby, then to relocate again in a year, you just can't do it. Which I totally understand. And there's kind of no security because you're under a year's contract. If you get injured, you don't know what's happening. And again, if you do quite well, but the not just Grimsby, but other clubs, the finances, well, we can only offer you a 1-year deal, So it is hard, and the times are changing, and I think it's very difficult as well because, like you say, you get a good player at Grimsby on a 1-year deal, and he does really well in that season. Other clubs are going to come sniffing around again, and it's not just Grimsby and other clubs. but that's unfortunate. A chance, unless you get people tied down on a little bit longer contracts, it's always going to be the case, you know.
We had 2 or 3 years, Alex, didn't we? At least where the player of the year left at the end of the season.
Yeah.
No year.
Yeah, I know like I say, I keep in touch with my friend, and obviously he goes to the games and he lets us know. And he gives us a good, honest, like, you know, if they played great, he'll tell. If they played poor, he'll say. But he'll keep saying, you know, oh, there's a couple of good players here. I don't know how long they'll be, you know, because I'd imagine they'll be snapped up, and it's happened. It's happened with a few of them. I think the lad Bogle was there, wasn't he? Did you have?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bogle, yeah.
He'll be back any day now.
Yeah.
The one thing with him was he went for money, which like you say, a lot of them, like when we had Carl Magnay, as he was player of the year, Alex.
Yeah.
And he had a 1 year deal, or his contract ran out, and somebody offered him a few quid, a bit more, and off he went, sort of thing. Danny Andrew was the same, Alex, wasn't he?
Yeah, we've had quite a few, but it seems to go all the way up. I mean, today when we record it, Jack Grealish has just left Villa as the boy. I know it's 100 million, but there's only so high you can get, isn't there? Even there's always going to be a team bigger and uglier than you that's going to pinch you. I just assumed Alan was going to go to Newcastle from us. That was all.
I think that's the thing, though, as well, is, I mean, you know, especially if you're a young lad and you're doing well, I think also any player wants to try and play at the highest level. So if clubs are coming in from the league above or what have you, you can't really, from my point of view, you can't really begrudge it, because you want to try and play at that. You want to try and test yourself against the best players you can play. Now, mine was the Championship, and that's what I played at, and I'm really pleased. You know, I tested myself against the Championship players and against ex-internationals, and that's what you kind of look at when you're in your career. You know, and you're playing, you want to play at the big grounds. You know, obviously teams at the time were dropping out the Premier League, Leicester's and that, and we were going to play at Leicester, and it was a fantastic experience playing at stadiums, Leicester, West Bromwich Albion, you know, Wolves, and as a player, that's what you want to try and do, you know, play at them grounds and enjoy the experience.
I've got a question here from GTFC Exiles, who says, how aware were you as a player that you were a fan's favourite, and did that status subconsciously make you play harder?
No, it wouldn't make us play harder, because I always, like I've said before, always played my game the way I would play. Nothing changed like that. It's nice, I mean, because, you know, you get tagged with supposedly a legend, isn't that? No, I'm not a legend. A fan's favourite is a nice thing to call it. And like, I suppose, like any player, you know, it's great when people chant your name. It gives you that buzz. You know, and sometimes, you know, if the chips are a little bit down or the game's a bit stale and you do get a chant or whatever, it is a massive pick me up. It's a huge pick me up, and kind of spurs you. Just you know, I'm not just that the chanting does pick you up, and it picks other players up. It picks a team up. You know, I've said all along when going back. Sorry for going up the subject, but when Dave Boylan got the I think, was it the save our season, when the season was stayed up?
Yeah. The 1, 2, 3 were hey.
Yeah, that was, honestly, as players in the changing room and that was spoke about, it was a massive boost for the players with the supporters coming in. You know, it was almost before the game we had the upper hand, because the crowd were bouncing and coming out of that. Got on the front foot, you know. But from a personal point of view, I can't see why any player wouldn't want their name to be chanted. You know, it's great, it's fantastic, it's a fantastic feeling. You know, I might not have been everyone's cup of tea, but judging by the response to that, I probably did more right than wrong for Grimsby, you know. The way I see it, if 51% people liked us and 49 didn't, I've done something right, you know.
I apologise if I now start chanting your name behind you in Jesmond or somewhere like that.
I remember it at. Do you remember the game at West Brom when we won 1-0 when Danny Coyne saved a penalty and then you scored one?
Yes.
Remember that game? I remember the Alan Pouton chant that day. Yeah, like you. Yeah, I think you celebrated. I saw the footage the other day, and you celebrated in your yellow shirt or your orange shirt with a little jig in front of the sound fans.
Yeah, it's funny. I've got me partner come to that game, with Andy Bowles, my friend, and another friend, Chris. And before the game, I had said to them, I'm on penalties. Put some money on us put some money on us for first goal scorer, because I'm taking penalties and nobody knows I'm taking the penalties. In the year before, a couple of my friends come to the game as well, and apparently there was a bookies inside the ground. So my friends thought, we'll put the bet on inside the ground, but the bookies was shut inside the ground for that game. So when I scored, a couple of my friends come running down to the front, and I was celebrating like that. Little did I realise, I met them after the game. They said, "Look, I thought there were quids in. They had put some money on, but when we got outside the ground, they went, the bookies was shut." And I was like, "Well, I was celebrating, and they were celebrating."
That was the little jig then. That was it. It was,
that's what it was. Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah,
it's amazing. What was I going to ask? I've got to ask about the Oldham game, because that lives in folklore. How did you get a ticket to come? Did you just come with some friends or something? Or
yeah, again, it was a lot. The group of lads I used to drink with in the Honest Fire, a few of them used to come. Well, Grimsby fans, but they used to come to some of the home games because I would get them tickets. But they also come to the away games quite a bit sometimes. But I had actually just signed for Gillingham, and I think I'd made my debut the day before, and we had arranged, because my birthday was in February. We had already arranged this night out in Manchester, for my birthday. Blah blah blah. And we ended up going out to Manchester, and the game was at Oldham the next day. So I had come across, and we had had the night out in Manchester, and then come across to the game at Oldham. But I had to go back to Gillingham that after the game. So my partner was in Grimsby. She drove the car down to Oldham. We watched the game. Then I took the car, and she went back on the minibus with all the lads. But I ended up watching the game down at Oldham, which it wasn't fantastic, and there was a lot of animosity, I would say, in the crowd, and it wasn't a good game, if you like. It was disappointing, and I think like I say, I think that was kind of the nail in the coffin for Paul Groves then, which was a shame, because he had put a lot of hard work and a lot of time and effort into it. And it was, if I'm honest, it was sad sitting in the crowd watching it and seeing the players and just like, the dejection, and the supporters starting to turn a little bit, turning, yeah. And actually, if I'm honest with you, I got a great reception off a lot of the supporters, but I got a couple of people who had a pop at us while I was sat there. One or two people sort of had a pop from a distance, but they didn't know the true story, what had just happened and why I had moved on. But again, I go back to it. It was a bad day all round, and I think people are just venting their frustration.
We need to lift this, Alex. We need to lift this.
Put it down on us, haven't I?
No, you're all right. No, that was Alex with his 6-0 defeat. What do you think was what was the highlight of your town time? Was that the hat trick, or something around that time? Do you think, or what would you say was your favourite moment in a town shirt? Rob D asks.
I think it'd be hard.
And your best midfield partner.
The difficult questions, because I think I've answered before years ago in a few, when I've come back to the club and did a couple of interviews. It's hard to pick one certain moment, because obviously the hat-trick, scoring a hat-trick, finishing at the pontoon, fantastic, loved it. The last day win against Fulham when we stayed up under Lenny that season was fantastic. The run we went on with Grovesy to stay up the following season when we were written off. All it's so hard. Liverpool, we played Liverpool and Jevo scored that fantastic winner.
I'm sorry, but it's more remembered for your bicycle kick of a clearance.
yeah. It's so hard to pick a from a selfish point of view, it would be the hat trick, obviously, but also from a team point of view, there's a lot to choose from. Like I say, there's a lot of good memories. It would be really hard to single out, but from my point of view, it would be the hat trick probably, you know.
I can't believe we've not even mentioned the Liverpool game, but we'll move on now because we have.
That must have been a pretty. The Liverpool game, I forget about it every time. Was that how was that for you? It must have been pretty astounding to come off the pitch winners at Anfield, wasn't it?
Well, I think if people remember, we were in the. Well, it was part of a really bad run where I don't think we won for. Well, I don't know, it was 19 games or something, which ended up costing Lenny his job. But in between that 19 or so games, we ended up. I always remember we got beat off Rotherham on the Friday night. It was Rotherham's first win of the season, and we were going to Liverpool on the Tuesday, and then we went to Liverpool on the Tuesday and beat them, and it was fantastic. It was just like it was strange, really, because coming out of the ground, I remember the manager was Gerard Houllier, and to be fair to him, he greeted me on the pitch, you know, like when we were having a walk about before the game, just in my tracksuits. And he was fantastic, a really nice bloke, you know, really friendly and polite. But then just to see the ground start, especially the way end, start filling up, and then coming out for the warm up, and even just like, you know, the whole game, we're on my back foot. We're getting a lot of possession again, so we didn't have a lot of the ball. And even when the penalty went in, you know, we still kept going. And when the equaliser went in, it was like, I can't believe this, you know, it was just scenes of euphoria and all that. And I was actually standing there and I was thinking which way I'm going to put my penalty at the Kop, thinking I'm going to be taking the first penalty. I've got to score at the Kop. It's one of them things. And this was a break in play. And then the next thing I knew, all of a sudden, Jevo just picked the ball up and just flicked it up and volleyed this ball. And I still don't know how, to this day, how it went in. It was just in the top corner. And I just remember running towards him and then running towards the way end, and it was just like pandemonium. It was crazy, absolutely fantastic. Just bodies like all over the place, jumping about, hugging. It was an unbelievable experience, a fantastic experience, you know.
Do you remember the game, the League Cup game before that? Because I found that I was one of the few that went to that. It was on September 11th, and we played Sheffield United.
Sheffield United, yeah. And I missed the first penalty in the shootout.
No comment. Because didn't they have Pavel Unlov mistakenly sent off? He got mixed up for another guy. Because all I remember is Warnock going absolutely batshit in the centre of the ground at the referee during extra time.
You know what? I can't remember, to be honest with you, Alex. I can't remember the sending off. I just I remember the game, and I think it finished 3-3. Or something like that, and I just remember it being 3-3 and going to penalties, and I remember missing a penalty and just hoping that the lads would pull us out, which they did, you know. But crazy, yeah.
It was a mad one, that. And then obviously we went to Highbury as well. That must have been quite nice, playing on the same pitch at Bergkamp.
I didn't actually. Again, I missed the game. Yeah, no, I missed the game through injury. I can't remember. I think that might have been, again, that was the start of, it may have been, I can't quite remember what it was, but I know I missed the game. I think it was kind of where I might have possibly had a chance of playing, but I don't know if Lenny wanted to risk it.
Yeah.
So kind of left it, you know. So I didn't actually play down at Highbury, but I know, like, obviously, I spoke to the lads afterwards when the following day when they were off, met up with a couple of them, and you know, they said it was great, but it was such a shame because although Grimsby took quite a few fans and it was a journey on a Wednesday night, there wasn't a lot of Arsenal fans there. But they said, like the lads said, you know, being at the stadium, Highbury, and in the changing rooms was great, and the pitch, you know, it was quite a tight pitch, and it was again, they said it was another great experience to play there, but unfortunately, it didn't do a giant killing that night.
Well, sure, Bruce is coming back. Bruce, you're not allowed to leave me with Alan on my own. It's not good for him.
I think, didn't you ask before as well? Sorry, but didn't you ask before something about who was the best partner?
Yeah, who was your best?
Yeah, I think I bypassed that talk. And again, it's a difficult one because I can't really pinpoint any of the players I played with. Every player I played with had their own like unique bit, you know. A lot of people didn't see I played with Stacey Caldicott, and Stacey kept it simple. A lot of people didn't see the side to him where he would be like kind of the dog's body for the team, and he would put a tackle in, he would win it, he would give it to people. I don't mean it like doggedly, he'd give it to people that could play. He knew his job, and he was simple but effective, very good. Did a lot of my running as well, covered a lot of my ground, which allowed me to go further forward. Like Stacey was kind of unsung hero in the time I was there. He didn't get a lot of credit, but from the manager's point of view, he did, because he played every week. So at the end of the day, if the manager sees that, then he knows he's doing something right. Played with Big George. George was a big lad, good lad to play with, lovely, gentle giant. Another good player. Just a shame it was only for a short space of time. I played alongside Grovesy. Grovesy, older player, experienced, fantastic as a midfielder. Up and down the pitch. Wayne Burnett, another one who was great, fantastic on the ball, great feet. So I can't really pinpoint players. Again, I could go on all day. Stewie Campbell come in, played alongside Stewie in midfield. Danny Butterfield come in, played midfield. There's a lot of players, and probably players I haven't mentioned, all brought their own little bit. So it would be pretty hard to pinpoint somebody out of all them, because it was a time where I was enjoying my football and everyone played their part.
We can't keep you forever, but that midfield or that team standing in the tunnel must have looked intimidating to the opposition when you've got yourself, Livo, Paul Groves, George Santos. That must be a terrifying tunnel to Blundell Park's tunnel is not the widest of things. Who do you think would have won an arm wrestle out of you lot?
Believe it or not, I can't arm wrestle, but again, Livo would be up there. So like strong and powerful. Big George. George was huge, but he was like a gentle giant. But I don't think I still would have wanted to get on the wrong side of George. It's always good when you're playing certain teams to have certain players that have got a presence about them, and we did have that. I know it was all based for a short time with George, but with Livo could stand on his own and frighten people. You know what I mean? I always loved that about Livo. You knew what you were going to get from him. And I still say it to this day, again, when we stayed up in not the first season, but when Lenny took over, and I always remember the Tranmere game when Livo just went in with the keeper, and I think that kind of set our season, him doing that. I think we're 1-0 down. I don't know, in him doing that, just kind of everybody looked around and went, you know what? We can do this, and it was kind of from there. And we knew each other. Everyone had each other's back, and it kind of kicked on from there. Again, I'm going about the team spirit, but it was a great team spirit we had. And a couple of times when the chips were down, we produced. We got back into it, and pulled off a couple of great escapes.
I've got one last question, then I'll let Bruce take over and we'll wrap up. But have you been slightly disappointed that Cristiano Ronaldo has overshadowed your stepovers? Or are you happy that he pays an homage to you every week?
Listen, this is a funny thing. When I was young, believe it or not, I had a little bit of pace. And again, when I go back to the School of Excellence, we used to learn stepovers in the Cruyff turn and in the Chrissy Waddle, the way Chrissy Waddle dropped his shoulder, in the Peter Beardsley pass. And when I was young, I was really good at the stepovers. What happened is, again, with my knees, and it's not an excuse, I started to lose the little bit of pace I had. So the only way I could try and catch defenders off balance was try a stepover. Little did I realise that the stepover looked so long, and by the time I'd done it, the defender had took the ball off us anyway. So, it was just one of them things I remember seeing. I remember it was a lad who is a local lad up here, Lee Clark. I remember watching him in a game. I can't remember if it was like a reserve or a junior game when he was a lot younger, and he did this double step over. And I was like, wow, that's unbelievable. I can only do the one step over. And then I started practicing it, and that's how it happened. But I think it's the longest step over in history, isn't it? By the time I get both feet over it, people are just standing there going, what's going on?
It was effective. That's all I can say. It was effective.
I've just thought of a question, Alex, a random one. Were you at St James's when Jim Dobbin scored?
I was, yeah.
That was as a town fan. That was a special day. That was a special day. You'd won something like the first 11 games of the season or something.
No, it was actually funny enough. It was because obviously, like I say, I was a big Newcastle fan, still am. It was with Keegan. We had won my first 10 on the spin, and the week before, I had actually, I can't remember, I was 13 or 14. I had went down to Roker Park when we played Sunderland, and we beat them 2-1 to win 10 in a row. And I went down with my auntie. She took us to the game, and we're like, 10 in a row. That's brilliant. Let's try and make it 11. And then obviously, Grimsby come. And I remember it was a last-minute strike, and he just pinged it in the top corner, and it was just like utter disbelief. Obviously, at the time, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was absolutely devastated and
I just remember. I just remember from that. Sorry, I'll go. No, you finish.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I was going to say. I think Jim Dobbin, he broke my heart that day. I couldn't believe it. Broke my record and broke my heart.
But it was. I just remember it was the year I started driving, and I just remember driving down the A1. We just got onto the A1, and they were and in those days the championship, as it is now, got almost as big a media coverage as the top flight did. And Kevin Keegan came on, and he just said, "Look, he just, as he always, every time Grimsby have beaten him, when he had lots of money with Fulham, we beat him in the playoffs. He's always been a really humble guy and honest. And he just said, we were beaten by the better team today. Don't talk about the fact that our record's gone. Talk about Grimsby." And that just, he's always been, and he was very similar to that when we beat them in the playoffs in the late 90s.
Yeah.
Just a very sort of humble and honest guy. I think we hit the bar twice that day as well.
Yeah, well, it's funny.
Barry Venison at the post, I think.
Did he?
Yeah.
Well, I used to clean Barry Venison's boots as well. Funny enough, just to chuck that in. But I remember John McDermott. Obviously, I spoke about it. Big Newcastle fan. And obviously, I think Groves might have played in that game. But I remember John saying afterwards, Kevin Keegan come on the coach to the Grimsby coach after the game, and I'd stopped it before it left, and he just says, "Look, lads," he said, "I just want to say congratulations. You were fantastic. You totally deserved the win, and played off the park." And he said, which he thought was a great gesture for him to come on the bus just before it left and said that.
I've got goosebumps.
Yeah. I just remind you though. I know it's a bit harsh, but I just remind you what the score was the last game of the season.
Yeah. All right.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
I'm only kidding. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask. Did you come down to Blundell Park for that day too? Because I don't think there was anyone less. Was there? Were you the last one in Newcastle? Were you?
Yeah. Believe it or not, I couldn't get tickets, and I think I was still at
that
school.
didn't seem to be a problem.
No, I know. Yeah, I know. I'd heard about it, but I think, like I say, I used to travel to a lot of the away games. My auntie used to take us to the away games, but just didn't get tickets. I think I was still at school, and it was just, I know a few friends, I think they had bumped off and had jumped in a minibus to go down, but I couldn't get down, unfortunately. But I think back then, I think I was listening to it on the radio or the wireless, whatever you would call it, and obviously listening to every minute of the game, because obviously little did I know later on I would come to Grimsby, but yeah. Listened to it that night from when we got promoted.
I was in the turnstiles that night to go in the upper. I usually went in the pontoon, but I was in the turnstile to go in the upper. And just as I handed over my ticket, I just felt a firm hand in the back, and me and this Geordie went through the turnstile together while the bloke was looking at his tickets. I'm like,
yeah.
It's like he sort of just put his finger to his lips and just wandered off into the crowd.
Yeah, I think that there's a few people I knew who went to the game, and like you say, I think some of them didn't have tickets, but they always remember it because people up, like I say, set up here. A few people that I spoke to, obviously, and when I played for Grimsby, they said, "I remember going down to Grimsby." People I spoke to, when we won promotion, had a great day, loved it down there, great bunch, this and that, So it was obviously not a great night for Grimsby, but a good night for Newcastle. But they obviously broke our record, which I don't mind as well. Nice achievement.
The 900 in the corner went mad.
Yeah. I remember where you stood and all, because I think at the time I was in the paddocks near the tunnel, and the away fans were just in the corner. It was. I remember you all coming up. There was quite a few. Yeah.
There was 900 of us, and I just remember looking up as it was the highest stand in the ground. Then the side next to the university, or the halls, the halls of residence. And there was the biggest guy I've ever seen sat there. And it was like he was staring out the whole 900 sat on the end of the row. Yeah. And then, there was a few things came over the wall after, because we were penned in for a while you guys cleared out. And there were a few not quite as gracious as you are now.
Oh, what, they bunches of flowers and all that coming over.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Pints from the strawberry. I mean, you get to play in the same midfield as Jim Dobbin next week, though. So, you can have a chat with him then.
To be honest, probably Jim will probably still be doing a lot more running than what I'll be, So he'd probably remind us on maybe of his goal at St. James's that day,
Wondering why you're chasing after him with a 2x4.
I'll be tackling him.
Man, I mean, we can't keep you forever, but thank you so much.
It's fine. Honestly, it's fine.
It's been a pleasure, and I've got to say, I mean, we joke about it far too often on this pod that you're my favourite player, but I have to thank you for. I mean, I don't think there are many other players that got the whole of London Park on their feet as much as you. You say you weren't that quick, but it certainly felt rapid. But maybe Macca was stood next to you at the time or something. I don't know.
Build us up and then knock us down, like Alex. Is that it? Is it? It's been a pleasure being on. Thanks very much. Like I say, I mean, I've probably been hard to get in contact with it, and I don't think anybody realised how hard it was for us to get onto Zoom tonight, which you haven't mentioned, which is I thank you for, like, because I don't do the whole social media thing, So no, for to get in touch, and to be honest, it's been an absolute privilege, and I've really enjoyed it. Thanks.
It's been our pleasure. I mean, you would be very popular on social media.
Maybe that's why I don't go on.
yes.
We'll see you in the bar at the Broadley game if we don't see you on the pitch.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We'll have a drink and that. We'll have a catch up. Yeah, it'd be great.
I think
it should be a fantastic day.
The court order doesn't allow me to go that close to you, if I'm being entirely honest.
Don't worry, I can probably produce one more 2-footed tackle if needs be, like, you get too close.
I'd probably, I'd be running off going, I just got 2-footed. Well, I'm not running. But thank you very much. I mean,
no problem.